Hey guys, James here from 5 Star Rating 22. Hope you guys are having a good day. Here is the third part for the Terminator painting that I'm working on from my own army's color scheme, I should say. Hope you guys enjoy it. I was drunk for part of these, so some of these kind of like were like, oh, we did kind of out of order. But hey, gotta have fun, man. Gotta have fun. So here you go. You can see here that we're making good progress, and what I'm taking here is cold gray, and I'm gonna do the connecting parts between the armor plating, like in between the hip joints and the knee joints and the elbow joints and stuff. And it makes a pretty big difference. I mean, you don't have to do like a horribly good job, but if you don't do it, it looks pretty goofy. So I always make sure to do those. I just do them in a simple way. I just do cold gray from Yellow Game Color in the joint areas, and then I take Battle Black wash from Games Workshop and just give it a decent wash. So you can see there, I did it in between the elbows and stuff like that. There's some that are like pretty small. You probably could do without doing them, but I try to hit all of them. And then I just take my regular Kolinsky brush here, size 1 travel brush, and I just kind of like squiggly line in the wash here into all the places. And then, on the eagle chest here too, sometimes even when you stand it up straight, the wash will kind of run funny, and it kind of ran funny on this, so I wanted to kind of retouch it up, so I did it around the edges and stuff, and then to let it dry this time, so hopefully it dried in the right spot, I set it down and then used one of those little things you get out of a pizza box just to hold them in place. So there you can see the wash is dried. So the connecting plates look decent, and the eagle looked a lot better there too. The wash actually was where I wanted it. Now I'm going to take Ghost Gray. This is almost white. I don't use white for my white plating because if I use this Ghost Gray, when I use this, it lets me use white, pure white, as a highlight color. And I like it because it's got a kind of like a blue kind of hue to it. I don't know, I really like it, and it's strong. It seems like it's got more pigment. It covers a little bit easier, even though it's thinned out. So I'm doing the casing on the gun here, and then I'm doing the skull on any of the skull part, like the eagle, chest eagle, and stuff like that. I'll get this Ghost Gray too. Oh, and then down here, be careful when you do this. Leave some of the gray, the dark gray in between that separates the Ghost Gray from the black armor, so you can see there. So you try to leave a little bit of that just to give it a nice transition from the black to the dark gray to the Ghost Gray. So you can see there. Turns out pretty good. Makes it easier on the eyes. You leave a little bit, and now I'm going to start on the chest eagle, and I do the skull also in this Ghost Gray, and the chest eagle, the first part of it's done in Ghost Gray. So, and then I do the top parts of the wings here. I used my Kolinsky size 1 brush, and I leave a little bit where the skull connects to that top section of the wing there. I leave a little bit and that in the dark gray to kind of show the shadow. Take your time on this. It doesn't take as long as you're probably thinking it takes. It's pretty easy to do the wings this way. The more you do it, the quicker you'll get, as with anything. So, and this is Ghost Gray again from the Yellow Game Color. Just be careful, take your time, try to have a steady hand. And then I actually switched to my character brush or my insane detail brush from Army Painter to do the actual feathers, and I do each one individually, just adding some of the Ghost Gray just to the very ends, leaving some of the dark gray in between the wings themselves, or in between the feathers themselves, and then in between the left and right sections, as you'll see. So just take your time. This is again thinned out, 1 part paint, 1 part thinner. So pretty much kind of staining the paint on. And you just do it nice, thin little lines right on top of the feathers there. And you get quick at it. You get a lot quicker. I've done so many of these chest eagles now this way that, I've gotten pretty quick at it. And this is a good practice of keeping your hand steady too, And especially working with thinned out paints, they like to run, so you gotta really, one little slip of the hand and it'll run all over in between all those feathers, and then you got a big old mess. But it's not too hard to clean up. Just take some of your gray, your underneath gray, and run it in between. So you can kind of see there the Ghost Gray is all put on. Now I'm taking dead white from the Yellow Game Color and adding the highlight to it, which I do to the top part of the skull here, and then the corners on the top sections of the wings as well, to add a little bit of highlight. And then to my other insignia, you can see there I add it to the parts that I think the light would kind of reflect onto or hit. And see, this is another reason why I use the Ghost Gray, because then you can add white as a highlight to it. It's very hard to decipher for the eye, but it it does make a difference. You can notice it if you look closely enough. You'll notice when it transitions from the white to the ghost gray. So it adds a nice highlight. Makes them pop a little bit more, as you can see there. So that turned out good. And then I'm going to add the arms back on here. And then I use the white, dead white again to make this insignia to make this stand out from the ghost gray, because otherwise it looks like, I just painted it in the ghost gray and it doesn't really stand out. So I used the white on top of it to make it so it pops, so it stands out more. And then I do line highlights around the casing as well, so just to add some more differentiational sections to it. It's easier on the eyes. Nice highlighting. I know it's hard to see in the camera there, but it is there, and it's about the width of the paintbrush, the lines that I put onto it. And then I did the top parts of that insignia as well. It's kind of hard to see. You can kind of see it though. But pretty much as hard as it is for the camera to decipher it, pretty much the same thing for the human eye, but you still can notice it. It looks different if you just leave it ghost gray. You don't have to do that, but I do it. You could probably do that and then take like a thin black wash and kind of run it into spots. But what I'm taking here is Bad Up Black Wash from Games Workshop and putting it over the cables to separate so the segments of the cables on the back of the arms are really noticeable. As you can see there, it helps define them. Works pretty good. Then what I'm taking here is this is again my travel brush from Kolinsky, made by Daniel Smith, and I'm taking and adding bone white to my crux terminatus. And what I'm doing is I'm just adding it to the top parts, leaving some of the old color in the recesses and even darker, and then making sure to leave even the darker recess part where the wash was, to leave that in the crevices. So I'm just adding to the top parts of this, but I add this to the whole crux terminatus. And make sure, just take your time with this, be careful. And then I leave it a little bit lighter on the bottom section as well, as you can see there, to give it that upper highlight look to it. So where the sun is shining, it's got like kind of that halo light from above, and that was bone white from Yellow Game Color that I just put on there. So you can see there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that bone white, and then I take dead white from Yellow Game Color. I mix them about 1-to-1, and that's going to be my highlight color for the crux terminatus here. And I just add it to the top of the skull there, and then to some of the parts that I think would be a little bit lighter. But leave some of that bone white in between even more. So you're doing this even thinner right on top of the bone white, and leaving it so it goes from, in the very dark creases, you got the wash, and then you got denim stone, and then you got bone white, and then you got the 1-to-1 mix for the very top highlight part. And I just kind of hit the parts you see there that I think the sun would, as if it was coming in from the top part of the model. It's kind of hard to decipher, but you can notice it, and it does make a difference. You could probably skip that last highlight if you're trying to make them quicker, but since these are my Terminators, I don't have a bunch of them. They're kind of important in my army. I put a little bit more detail work into them to make them look nice. So, as you can see there, you can kind of see the highlight. But I think the crux terminatus looks real nice done up that way. At least I like it. That's how I do it. Again, to each his own. And since I already had the paint mixed up, I took bone white first, that kind of bleached bone look, and dry brushed that over the skull and the base. And then I took that 1-to-1 part and did that on top of the skull as well. Just since I had it already mixed up, I figured I'll do it. Now I'm taking the bloody red from Yellow Game Color, and I'm going to add it to the separated segments of the cable here for a highlight color, as you can see there. And again, this is something that, goes quicker than you think it does, and you get quicker the more you do it. And again, I leave a little bit of the darker red that was stained by the wash in between the blood red and the black, so just to give it a nice transition. I do it to all the segments, and then I added just a very thin line to the top of that cable by the foot to give that a highlight. And then I'm also going to add the blood red to the very corners of the lenses here, to the front corners of it in the bottom. So it's kind of the front corner, and then a little bit of a line kind of towards the back, and then the bottom of these sensory lenses on the upper right part of the model here, just to the bottom left corner of them, to add some highlight. And then I also added the blood red around the purity seals, just to the upper parts of it, to add highlight to those, and then to the bottom part of those buttons on the back as well, I added, to add some highlight to it, some first highlight. Alright, so now I'm taking that bone white again and mixing it again with my white I had taken a break, so my other stuff was kind of getting gunky, so I just mixed up a little bit of a new batch here. And what I did was mixed it 1 to 1, and then again, it's thinned out. And what I'm going to add it to here is the purity seals, the parchment paper on it. And I add a line highlight just to the very edges of it. And you can see I try to avoid like the parts where there's tears in the paper. I try to avoid that spot. I leave those the old color. Seems to help. And then on the corners of them, like some of them jut out, so I pretty much put like a triangular shape of the highlight onto the corners there, and any raised edges, as you can see. And then see again, this is a good part to have the arm removable for getting to certain spots. And then after I get all those line highlights on, I'll take and kind of just pick a few random spots in some of the parchment to add like bleach spots or some differentiation in color. And I kind of just add it and then wipe it off. It gives it kind of a cool stain effect that I like. So just in kind of some random spots. And on the corners again, like I said, yeah, I try to like add a little bit more to the corners because they kind of wave out. They kind of fold out, as you can see. So it helps it. And then what I'm using here is my 0.01 micron Secura micron pen, which is felt. It's just felt paint pen. But what else I used to use is just black and a script paintbrush. And you can get these at like hobby stores stuff. And you can see with it, that's my insane detail. It's about the same width, but it's about twice as long. And they call them script brushes. I don't know why, but they work really good for it. They work really good. You just thin out some black, and you can do the same thing pretty much as you can with the micron. I just use micron because it's quicker. Don't have to mess with the brush. And it's a nice small size. And then I add a little Roman numeral 10 there, since mine is the 10th chapter, and this is for my chapter army. So I add that Roman numeral 10 at different places, and then I like to add it on the purity seals. So you can see there with the highlights and the script work on it, looks pretty good. Oh, and try to avoid the edges when you do the script work. Try to keep it more in the center. It seems to help. So you can see there, it's starting to come along pretty well. Now I'm going to take and add another highlight, and this is Glorious Gold, and I add this to all the brass work. Not like a thin line of it, and to the top of the rivets as well, but I add a line to it to the parts that I think that would be more seen. So you can see there, pretty nice thin line, about the width of the tip of the brush there. And I add that to all the brass, and that's the first highlight onto the metallic. So you can kind of see there, it's kind of hard to differentiate, but you can see it a little bit. Alright guys, so that's it for now. Stay tuned for the next part. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Leave comments, subscribe if you like, and tell your friends. Take care, happy holidays, and keep gaming, guys. Later.